Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. We have welcome to your EdHeroes Global Forum 2025. My name is Michael, and I have a pleasure to share my insights and also moderate a panel of experts in the education and technology space, particularly focusing on Asia as a region. But I'm sure there are many different viewers here, and also other experts who would like to see or who will see comparisons to other parts of the world. I will just a little bit of sequence. I will share for 10 minutes my insights, and then we have the three speakers here who I will introduce in a second, who will share their expertise in their specific area, and then we have a panel discussion at the end. So the topic of this year's Forum 2025 is technology and innovation in education, and I think we have a great lineup of speakers here. Very briefly about myself, my name is Michael. I'm based in Singapore, and I founded and run the Singapore Education Network, which is an alliance of 2,500 education professionals and organizations in Asia. We are a community builder of education professionals as well as a service provider, and technology is a big part, but obviously technology needs more than just the tools. It needs a lot of professional development, etc. So it's something we heavily get involved in. And my pleasure to introduce the three speakers here. We have Takis, who is our Senior Director of Engineering at Parchment. Then we have Kim, who is Head of Asia for Inspira. And Dr. Steven, also a pleasure to have him here, who is founder and Director of R&D at Habuk. And I'm sure you will enjoy their sessions and also the panel discussion later on. But let me share a little bit and also lay the groundwork here of what we're going to talk about it later on with the panel. So we talk about building digital pathways for students. So we particularly look at the students' experience, while teachers and educators are obviously a critical ingredient. At the end of the day, education is about students and learners. And we will cover in the presentations later, as well as the panel discussion, about three different components, how digital education or pathways for students can support. And at the end of the day, we talk about outcomes, right? So it's about digital learning. We talk about digital assessment as well as digital credentials. But let's go back here a little bit and see where we started. And COVID obviously was a big game changer here. And the technology and education exploded, and what was generally being shared and what has been evolved over time has been technology which is supposed to be or has made, and this is what we're going to discuss later, learning easy, interactive, and interesting. And easy, particularly in terms of accessibility, in terms of content, interactive, particularly to make it more impactful, and also cater to different skill sets and age and capabilities. And then literally interesting, to raise the interest that more people, more students, more learners, more children are interested in learning. But you hear other voices. And with the emergence of AI, particularly, which obviously created a huge buzz around education and a huge amount of promise, you hear the other side. You see that the revolution has failed. The revolution which we were promised will revolutionize education, will make it better, impactful, cheaper maybe. And of course, there are always people who fall through cracks, but also the naysayers, the organizations, so the experts, the academics who didn't like what we saw as a revolution, but didn't essentially revolution didn't achieve what was promised. So of course, we are also saying that with over reliance on education, that this has not achieved what was generally promised. But I'd like to start or continue here. And probably many of our viewers here have seen that a million times, but I really love this example. Long time by Albert Einstein, that an education system right now needs a change. And I hope this is why we're all here. I hope this is we agree upon. But education needs, I don't like to say drastic change, because drastic change in education is a very difficult thing to do. But at least we agree that it needs the continuous, gradual, but also a change which really moves the needle more than just a little bit, right? And this refers here to assessment, and I'm sure Kim can share about this later on, also from his perspective. This case study or this example here shows exactly how education used to work. We have 12 years of schooling, generally very similar curriculum or syllabus with an assessment and test, and then we have vocational training, our university degree, 3-4 years, and then we join the job market. We join employment, and with a bit of professional development. But as we have seen with the evolvement of technology, in particular, but generally with the speed of how job scopes change, how different areas of education were left behind with what is in our job market, we need a reset. And education is part of it. Let's look at some data here, right? I mean, data depends on the context, depends on the country and region, but overall, there's a great deal of adoption among students and also among institutions. Without going into the details here of each data point here, students without institutions also learn a lot, right? And that's something you need to keep in mind. If institutions, schools, universities, our institutes are reluctant to use more technology-driven tools, students will do it anyway. The biggest learning tool or biggest institution in the world is YouTube, right? When you look at the number of students using it, so that's something we should not forget. And here, trust your own data. Trust your own data counts, meaning whatever global data or country data says. If you run an institution, you run a school. If you know what your students, your teachers believe in using technology and innovation, I think this is really what counts. On the other side, nobody needs everything. That's, I think, also fully agreed. I think it's important, if you look at the transformation of your institution, that a gradual approach is important. Nobody's left behind. Teachers need time to adopt. Students need time to adopt, right? And there will always be parents and other stakeholders who may think it's too fast and too much. I think if you're a teacher, if you're an institutional leader, if you work in school management, there will never be a situation where everybody agrees on everything, right? So I think that's okay. So quickly here, I want to give, from my perspective, 5 simple reasons why education needs to change. Number 1, industry and innovation changes so fast. And accordingly, skill sets change fast, but education generally changes too slowly. When you read the World Economic Forum, the most popular or the most in-demand skill sets, you will see that changes every year. And it's a bit scary for, particularly in academic circles, because it's really hard to change, right? So fast. Education has become too expensive, particularly in higher education, maybe not on the school side, which is often public school driven, but also private schools, obviously. So using technology and innovative tools to make education more accessible and also less costly. I think particularly in the developing world and emerging markets, a very important topic here. Corporates are becoming education providers. Essentially, it refers also to a fourth point. There are alternative education pathways. Many big companies they offer certifications. They are actually moving into a education space by providing educational programs and workshops, which can undermine the conservative traditional education system. So if you are working at academic institutions, you should take them as a partner, not as a friend. So I always try to encourage work very closely with corporates, particularly if we have an interest in in providing educational pathways as well. And last but not least, skills-based. Skills-based, one of the other hot topics is even higher education, more and more skills-based education certifications and offerings are needed and becoming more and more important than academic credential. And when you see how many companies nowadays already essentially hire students or fresh grads for jobs where we used to require a degree and now they only require certain skill sets, that's something which should set off alarming bells, particularly for our education. So very, very important. And again, technology in this part can play a role in content and certification as well as in making things more accessible. This is from my side, just setting the stage here. I think it will be great to hand over to Stephen to share his insights. Stephen, you're based in Taiwan, but you work regionally in Asia. It would be great to hear from you how to see technology and innovation support students in their pathways.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Michael, again. Hello, everyone. I'm come from Taiwan, Taipei. This is my resume. You just check a list. It's okay. So let's begin my talk. What is the digital learning about it? Let's introduce myself and another background. I was a primary school teacher about 35 years ago. So I have a few years experience in the primary school. I'm teaching computer science and nature science and even music. So in Taiwan, the teacher should multi-skill, which will teach everything for the single one teachers. So for my experience, I got my computer science degree and I began my study. So let's talk about my experience. And the first is about how the digital learning models contribute to long-term student success. I think model is very important. Maybe 2 decades about the theory is the very famous is about the TPC. TPC is stand for technology, pedagogical, and content. So this model provide the teacher, and also the system designer, also the course designer will think about the how the technology and the pedagogical and the content can integrate. So we will not only focus on technology. So it is very important model. And secondary, we invent a team model. Actually, team model is not a whole new. Team model is based on the very famous mastery learning. Mastery learning is about maybe student can learning, or we say teaching, and we need assessment, and about diagnostic. We will diagnostic about the learning, and later we make some mechanism for the remediation. It's so-called the team model. The team model we adapt in the classroom, or not only the classroom, about out of the classroom, the model can be a great cycle for learner or the teachers. And later will be not only the AI coach I will talk about later. Next is about the technology assisting more effective learning method and strategy. Let's see a short video. So the tool provide we invent a tool provide class management and also interactive whiteboard tool, and teacher-student interaction tool, and learning assessment tool. That's all about the tool scope. So next, and how to effectively implement diverse assessment under the demand of competency-oriented teaching. I think the competency-oriented is very important. For the tool view, is a diversified tool should be adapted. So we manage so many different assessment way. And the first, when teacher use the different tools, they should have own clarity, which is so-called the teacher's clarity. We will focus on the learning goals and outcome. And most importantly is data-driven. A system will generate many data from teachers and students. So teachers should properly use the data and for maybe some decision making. You can change in the stage to change some material, something like that. And then the model we adapt and tool adapt is about the peer instruction. It's invented from the Harvard University professional Eric Mazier. This tool is very good for every teachers. I think if you have chance, you just looking for the peer instruction. It's a very good model for this. Next, we will talk about AI. Some say that AI may damage education. I agree about a little about because if we mislead using the AI technology, sure, education should be damaged. But so when we adopt the AI in the system, we are very, very carefully. So the first, we are focused on help teachers, and help to process the data. So there are two examples. At first, we generate questions in the class, in the lesson. So it's real-time generation. So the question may be based on student learning result, and we can quickly, maybe we can make a easier question or harder question for the student. And also the tool should provide teacher has the ways to delete or modify the question very, very quickly because the class time is very limited. And another is we can grading. Grading is very usable and a powerful tool for the AI. But the AI can make a mistake. So we also integrate about the peer assessment. Real human peer assessment is by the student. So we integrate the AI grading and the peer assessment. Is a wonderful integration for the AI. That's two cases. So how about thinking about the educator involved in digital environment? Like Michael said, we should be a guide, a facilitator, not only a knowledge deliverer. So from this point, we should be care about the student data from the portfolio, from the digital system, and we can we can provide more help to the student, and also the teacher should be a cooperator and a connector. I think it is a teacher from the digital age. Teacher may face some hard because technology, familiarity, something like that. So they maybe seek from the community help. I think it's very important. So I think the future teacher need at least skill, not only for the skill from the book or his domain knowledge. So we also provide another is for training about teachers, because teacher use technology maybe face something hard. So we have so many example how the teacher use technology in the classroom. We collect about 600,000 case. It's read 600,000 case in the platform. They will observation all the lesson. We will record it, and the AI may be grading, and a real human may be grading, to help teachers to learn how the technology integrate in the classroom from other peers. So thank you very much. That's my talk, and thank you for Michael. I send back to Michael.
Thank you, Stephen, for sharing your insights here. You brought up some very interesting topics, particularly AI. I guess this is an overarching theme for any technology company in education. And of course, teacher training is something else I'm also personally and many other people are very interested, because PD is the key to unlock potential of technology. Can I ask Kim, you're based in Malaysia, you work for a global company, you built up a great portfolio in digital assessments and similar tools in Asia. Would be great to hear your insights too. Over to you.
In the interest of not speaking too much, because I think we have quite the half hour ahead of us, I'll try to keep this brief, and I promise, Michael, to absolutely not go over 7 minutes. But I also want to thank you very much, Michael, for the introduction. Thank you, EdHeroes, for the opportunity to be here today. And also thank you, Stephen, for the introduction to a book. Now, I don't have a great CV. I went to business school, believe it or not, and yet I work in pedagogy, or technology that enables pedagogy to be correct. In a nutshell, we are a Norwegian company. So what we do is bring innovative Scandinavian educational technology to the world. And we do that to enable pedagogy. And that is incredibly important to start with. While we are a technological company, a tech business, our core driver is pedagogy. And we've done this for about 25 years. We serve teaching and learning professionals and, of course, learners from primary school all the way to higher education. And we do that by offering our expertise and solutions within assessment. So the design of, the delivery of, monitoring, and the feedback on assessments, any range from exams to coursework projects, both informative and high-stakes settings. I want you to look at these numbers while I speak over them. But what I can assure you is this is not what I'm going to tell you about. They are supportive of the message for the slide. Assessment and academic integrity in the digital age. That insinuates that there was an age where this was done analog. And that is true. So the question is, what has changed from that analog age? When did that happen? And more importantly, why? All of this started early 2000s or maybe even late 90s, when educational institutions, some of them in Scandinavia, some of them in the US, some of them in the UK, also some of them here in Asia, started using simple word type essay formats to allow their students or learners to deliver essays rather than writing those for hand. Now, what happened was, obviously the world changed pretty drastically with full access to the internet. First in Europe, North America, down to the Middle East, out through Asia. And that required a significant drive of change in the delivery of various assessment formats. And it was easy to see the potential wins for both the education institutions, the teaching and learning professionals, and the learners. So with an accelerated pace post-COVID, the entire educational climate around assessments took a technology first approach rather than paper and pen. Now, with that said, in a region like Asia, we do still have educational institutions, in particular in the earlier years of education throughout primary school, where the technology, unfortunately, I'd say, not yet is at the level where it would need to be. And that is a change that we need to accelerate together, both as an industry, teaching and learning professionals, and actually as humans and citizens of these individual states. Because the world has also changed significantly. And the students or learners in primary school, in secondary school, in colleges, universities, they are coming out into a world where the analog assessment model no longer is fair, valid, and sometimes not even applicable. And just like you said, Michael, assessment, in a sense, hasn't changed much from the analogy with the different types of animals wanting to climb or being enforced to climb the same type of tree and then being evaluated upon their performance or time of climbing. That is not evil by default. It is just a sign that times have changed. And with that, so does assessment. Now, the digital assessment trends that we're seeing, they're all very positive, which is great. So we see significant improvement in access to devices, even in the earlier years, where many institutions, municipalities, or private school or educational providers offer one-to-one access to their students. We see a significantly higher adoption rate of digital assessment across the board, also in primary school. Inclusivity in terms of how we support learners with special needs or other potential challenges. We also see now in the last, let's say, 4 to 5 years, a big uptake in bring your own device strategy, which also allows students that are in a program where there is no centralized device policy to partake in digital assessment exercises. We see new and innovative assessment formats. It is no longer just a lockdown exam, either an essay or an MCQ Google form type setup, but it is remote assessments with or without proctoring, authentic or skills-based assessment with a variety of question types, a variety of stimuli, a variety of assessment methods. We see data analytics becoming a major player within the product development of the industry to respond to the need to use the data to support learners and their progress throughout not only a course or a program or a year, but the entire lifelong learning journey. Now, with that said, we also see the rise of adaptive testing. And adaptive testing, for me personally, is one of the big passion projects that we need to drive. Adaptive testing will allow us to individualize the journey of assessment for students at their own level, allowing them to learn by doing, learn by testing, coming back, giving them a level of complexity to the questions or the assessment itself that suits them and their learning objective, and more importantly, their learning style. And that will offer and promote significant improvements in terms of inclusivity. And it will also give us a fair educational assessment journey rather than the one-size-fits-all that is the traditional model. And the technology is what enables this. You could do all this on pen and paper in a ledger as a teaching and learning professional, but that will take 99% of all your time. And then you miss out on something that's even more important, and that is the personal touch with your learners. I have one last slide, and you might ask me, so why is this logo on here? It's not just to impress you. It is actually for a completely different reason. So the drivers for change may seem different. Oh, higher education has a much higher adoption rate of digital assessment. Or why would we in primary school do this? Where's the benefit to us? The interesting thing is, if you look at the need established on this page, it sounds quite academic in a sense, right? But it isn't. Behind these words are the exact same drivers and needs that you have in your primary school. It's reaching learners, making sure that you assess what is right for that assessment, for that learning outcome and objective, and doing that in a fair way by using technology. So as a closing remark, I just want to say that digital assessment is here to stay. Some people are now afraid of this movement because of something we call generative AI. I want to encourage you all, in particular those of you who are active teachers, to see generative AI as your assistant, not your replacement. Because what you have inside of you in terms of experience and knowledge will never, and yes, that's a bold statement, translate across to the screen. It will never replace you, but it can support you. Thank you very much. That was me.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing. Really great insights. I took away the bring your own device concept I haven't heard of. I think that will be very useful for other companies to look at it too, and technology or Gen AI as such to be your assistant. I think that's a very, very powerful statement. But let me not take up of our next speaker's time. Takis, you're based in Australia. You work for a global company working across the world. Tell us, what is digital credentialing or digital credentials? I'm not sure if everybody knows that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. And I am very, very excited to be a part of this rather interesting group. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about enhancing learner journeys and, of course, innovating credential recognition, which is the critical path that we are on as a part of Parchment, an Instructure company. And what we've sort of witnessed, and what I've certainly witnessed on my journey, I joined the organisation back when it was known as Digitary, where we were essentially beginning to roll out credentialing networks across the world, starting with Ireland, back in the corner of Europe. And now we are truly a global system and a global network and environment to support learners on their lifelong learning journey. Now, when we're talking about lifelong learning, we are talking about supporting learner mobility ultimately. Now, first and foremost, we are all lifelong learners, right? There are people who are listening to this. I've already learned a ton from the speakers beforehand that we've already heard. And we are continuing our own respective journeys towards wherever it is that we want to go, to what I sometimes term the job to be done. Now, global learner mobility is only increasing. We're seeing skill-based migration move country to country, continent to continent, as people search for new opportunities for further advances and for further learning. And what we found is that there's a critical need for credentials to be recognisable, to be portable, and that means a lot of things, and critically to be trusted across different borders. Remember, when we cross borders and we move between regions, we want to take those credentials and awards with us and have them clearly assert our learning in a verifiable and trusted way. Now, there have been a number of conventions, conferences, frameworks, and so forth that have developed and evolved over time, including the Bologna process, which goes as far back as 1999, which was when the EU probably first came together to discuss what learner mobility is and what credentialing and recognition might look like going forward. And more recently, of course, with the Groningen Declaration as well, sort of propelling and having hundreds and hundreds of signatories of educational institutions from across the world. And of course, more recently, UNESCO starting to formalise some of its skills-based frameworks. One of the key points around credentialing and recognition is, of course, the idea around trust and, of course, in fraud prevention. Now, credential fraud is growing. We have a plethora of fake diplomas, diploma mills, organisations, websites where you can go and essentially order what is ultimately a fake credential, and it ultimately essentially can devalue a lot of the marketplaces that we all operate in, and it misrepresents, obviously, people's achievements. Now, paper is easily forged and has been easily forged. We have also seen insecure electronic versions of credentials, such as through the use of PDFs that don't have some of the security characteristics that, in fact, we use as well. And ultimately, what we want to move towards, especially with some of these different technologies, is something that can provide verifiability and cryptographic reliability through the use of digital signatures that can give us ideas around tamper evidence or calling home to essentially check on verifiers and so forth. Critically, with verification, we want fast verification. We want to be able to sort of consume a credential, be able to understand it, to make sense of it so that we can understand what's been presented and how that can be utilised as a part of that job to be done. And indeed, me as a verifier, I can get a good understanding of what that learner is presenting to me for their and our collective journey. We are also seeing the evolution of credentials and different credentialing models, including micro-credential models. And what's that starting to do is, I guess, recognise that learning itself is changing, not unlike what Michael and others have talked about earlier on. What we're seeing is that we're a diversity of pathways. We're seeing a diversity of learning. And indeed, we want to start to capture these and recognise these in critical and verifiable ways. Now, the evolution of the credential itself is an important and interesting pathway. And what we can do is we've roughly mapped it out to go from, say, paper to what I now call intelligent credentials or dynamic credentials. Now, paper credentials or physical forms of credentialing have of course, been around for thousands of years. And that evolution has sort of really, or the critical evolution has probably only really begun in the last 20 or 30 years. So think about thousands of years, and then we've had this acceleration, of course, because of the technology that we're surrounded by, and as it has, in fact, enhanced our digital lives. So we started to create digital copies of physical representations of credentials. So still not verifiable, still not true to form as such. They were essentially a copy of, a testame or some sort of notarized or typical document like that. Then we began to see the beginning of what you might start to call truer digital documents. So these became slowly sort of supplanting some of the more physical representations, and we started to see the evolution of some of the security characteristics that were being introduced on digital documents. So again, we can attest and verifiably assert our claims. Then we had an interesting evolution with the Open Badges standard, which is roughly 25 years old now. We often term this one a digital native credential. The reason it's a digital native credential is it's never existed as anything other than a data structure, a dynamic credential, what we can call a dynamic credential that aligns with a standard and can be easily understood and is portable and uses accepted and known protocols. And now we are moving towards what we can probably call true digital dynamic credentials that have actually intelligent characteristics that, again, allow us to assert claims in a variety of ways, from zero knowledge proofs all the way to sort of selective disclosures and full disclosures of a particular credential. Now, when we talk about the broader sort of environment that we're living in and working in and asserting claims, we're talking about a credentialing ecosystem or network, a network of issuers, a network of relying parties, and of course of learners. And globally, they're essentially networks of networks. You might have regional networks like we have here in Asia, in North America, and of course in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Now, essentially what you've got is a cycle like the one you see in the illustration here. We have an issuing institution pushing a credential down into a learner, and then a learner sharing that credential to a relying party or verifier. That could be for employment, it could be for migration, it could be for further or advanced study. And the critical verification point essentially goes back up to the issuing institution as the issuer of that credential. Now, what we want to do ultimately is allow learners through their lifelong learning journey to start to collect a variety of credentials from a number of different sources. This is, again, formal learning, informal learning. I might have a tertiary institution, I might learn on the job, I might get a short course or a micro credential. What we want in a credentialing platform is the ability to sort of collect a lot of these different types of credentials and be able to create stories and have them then represent us in a truly trusted and verifiable way. And that's essentially what we're building and working towards. Critically, again, we start to introduce different elements, different technologies that will support some of these journeys that we're talking about. Some of it is already with us now and working rather well, but we are seeing a rapid evolution towards more cryptographic controls, more security characteristics. We're looking at the use of different types of digital signatures across different types of credentials, where ultimately we want to get some tamper evident sort of signals within an application that is showing us the credentials so we can understand, or rather it's a signal that perhaps we should not trust what's been presented to us. Critically, again, we've got the metadata inside the credential that allows us to easily understand as verify some of the learning outcomes that someone may have achieved as a part of their journey. And ultimately, again, it helps us better understand what the credential means and how it can align with what we're trying to do. And again, as I mentioned, with some of the evolutions that we've seen, we start to see different types of disclosures, different ways of presenting the credential in whole or in part, which is, again, enhances a learner's journey as well. So what's next? So finally, we're moving towards now broader adoption of some of these ecosystems. We are seeing a lot of sort of credentialing moving towards workforce credentials, shorter course credentials, being able to assert claims within digital wallets. We're seeing the adoption of verifiable credentials, of networks of verifiable credentials that we're seeing to allow us across that sort of cross-border recognition using different frameworks, including UNESCO, including EBSI, the European blockchain, and of course, towards deeper integration with some of the systems that we use to interpret and understand these credentials. Finally, where we'd ultimately like to get to is a trusted network where learners are able to easily assert their claims, and as verifiers, we can easily understand them as they align to standards using standard data models, practices, and protocols. Thank you very much, Michael. That's me. Back to you.
Thank you, Takis. It's a very important topic, quite a lot to download and digest. We have not a lot of time left for a few questions, so I have one question for each speaker, and please keep it short. Let me stay with Takis right here, since it's still fresh in our mind what you shared. Straightforward question for a learner, for a student. How does it change? How does it transform if I, as a student, apply for a job with an employer, or I apply for a university admissions? How does it make my life easier?
So what we want to say, what we're seeing with some of these digital credentials is that when we start to use standards-based frameworks, when we start to use something like, say, an ELMO standard or a PESC standard in North America, when different credentials align to different sort of dialects, different taxonomies that are easily understood, it will help me get my point across clearer, and I can clearly assert my claim and what I've learned and how that might align to the verifier's need. And critically, again, we've got technologies being built around those ideas that allow me to easily consume them in an automagic way. So I'm able to run a system across it, including the use of AR tools, which we're seeing also enter the frame, and that is able to give me sort of more certainty that I am well presented and well represented. And again, as a verifier, I know that I can trust what I'm looking at from a presentation.
Excellent feedback. Thanks, Takis. And I'm sure if anybody wants to know more, they can reach out to you. Kim, can I come back to you? If I'm an institution, digital assessments, heard about it many times, but haven't really looked into it or haven't really fully implemented it, what are the key considerations if I run an institution, or if I'm a teacher and I want to have more digital assessment offered to my students? What would you advise? What are the key considerations?
I'd like to rephrase that a little. I hope that most institutions will take the bottom-up approach rather than the top-down.
Okay.
Because I want to recommend you to allow this to come from the actual academics or teachers rather than from management. You need to secure the buy-in. Now, I don't think that's going to be a problem. Looking at the teachers we have here today in the room and the ones I meet, they can see the value and the benefit of driving this change. Now, beyond that, make sure that you have infrastructure available. Be realistic. And as with any other implementation of solutions, be patient. Take your time. The world isn't going to change overnight.
Okay, thank you. Excellent advice. Thanks, Kim. And again, if somebody's more interested to learn more about this, I'm sure Kim is available, and you shared your contact details. Dr. Stephen, you have a pretty wide plethora or basket of tools which you offer to institutions. And I also saw you offer training courses, professional development from teachers, which is absolutely key. What is the role of teachers, and how can an institution support teachers being more welcoming to adopt tools? What would you advise?
Our institution will provide so many training opportunities, include online training and also face-to-face training. And we also have many trainer, and the trainer will so many, maybe 1,000 teacher spread in Taiwan. And when we have a training course, and we will invite the teacher to share their experience or demonstration, something like that. And some teacher maybe go to the school. The very, very hard teacher, they go to school to help the school teachers. So, and our institution also provide a certificate, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Stephen, for sharing. So we have 2 more minutes. I have one question, the same question to everyone. Make it short and sweet. Which country or maybe 2 countries do you think has made the most progress in education? And please just share in 1 sentence, why do you think that's the case? And if the starting point is important, right? It could be any country, but it's the biggest jump in terms of the last 5 or 10 years. Maybe Takis, we start with you.
Great. That's an awesome question, and certainly puts everyone and the world on the spot. I would actually say, bias notwithstanding, which is clear, I would actually say Australia and New Zealand. The reason I say that is from a credentialing and recognition point of view, it was the first country to have a true digital credentialing network through the My Equals program. It's been going now for about 7 or 8 years. It is an example to the rest of the world. It was born out of the Groningen Declaration as well. So some critical points around that. So Australia and New Zealand for me.
Okay, you are a true Australian and a New Zealand, and you can't forget your important neighbor too. Fair enough. Kim, over to you. What do you say? Make it please short.
Yeah, I'll be very short. You think I'm going to say Sweden, but I'm not. Actually, I'm going to say the opposite, which is Finland. And do believe me, I don't usually say good things about Finland. We have a very friendly rivalry. Finland's gone from being, I wouldn't necessarily say far behind the other Nordic countries to being far ahead. The quality and engagement, the overall standing internationally is just fantastic what they've done. And as you might know, here in Asia, the Finnish school system is actually now imported and operated in many countries. And then you have to say Singapore. You can't leave them out of the equation. Now, a very different system to Finland, but certainly successful.
Okay, cool. Finland, Singapore, I heard this before. Certainly. Stephen, what would you say? Please make it brief.
I think maybe China, because I'm familiar about China, because China from the COVID-19, after the COVID-19, they invested many money for the AI in education. So you can see something like DeepSeek, the event from China. So I think the education faced many big change. I have also a company in Sichuan. So they have some feeling about China, make a big change in education. So that's my opinion. So maybe everyone take care about China. It's very
we
important.
all know they've made big jump, and it's great to have 3 different opinions. It's good to agree to disagree, but different perspective, and I get nobody's wrong in this context. Well, thanks again, EdHeroes Forum, to organize this, having all of us share our insights, and especially thanks to Dr. Stephen, Kim, and Takis to share their insights. Hope you enjoy the rest of the other discussions and forums. Have a great day ahead. Thank you. Goodbye.